From the great halls of their house, there are assembled three who hope to one day be the world's greatest driving heroes. Created from the cosmic legends of the universe comes our team captain, the Vision, Bill Fisher, and their soon-to-be Wonder Woman, Vicky Fisher, and our Captain Marvel and head flight trainee, Jennifer Scripchuk. Their mission: to fight injustice, share what is right and wrong, to get you out of your house and come out racing with them and serve all mankind. They are the Garage Heroes in Training Team.
Dominating with Dawson.
Ben Dawson.
Hello.
Are you the Ben Dawson from Dominating with Dawson?
Same one.
Oh, well who thought I'd meet you here?
At the Domination Store?
The Domination Store. Wow.
Weird.
Awesome. It must be the Christmas season. La, 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 la.
Gotta get ready for your race dance.
I do. So I'm going out racing, and we're at a short sprint race. And I can definitely have goals for that. But I think even more important, perhaps, because I haven't done sprint racing that much yet, maybe for endurance racing, it might be important to make sure that you have a goal for your stint. Because, as part of a team, you've got responsibilities not only to yourself, to the car, but to the team. Because if you go out there and you use the car up and give it to somebody with no brakes, broken wheel bearing, that's not exactly, one for all and all for one.
But
because in order to
But
finish,
I was in the lead when I brought it in.
Yeah. That doesn't help, man. But maybe we should talk about stints for a race.
Well,
Do you typically have goals?
I think if you're the superstar on the team, then your goal has to be, I'm gonna go out there, I'm gonna use the best part of the tire so nobody else gets a faster time than I do, and then everybody else can just see what happens.
Oh, so you're the guy who has to be the fastest of the weekend in the car. I see what you're doing.
I'm just saying, if you're the superstar,
okay.
They know who they are. Game recognized game, Grandpa. Now,
that's Dr. Grandpa to you, buddy.
Dr. Grandpa. Yeah, there are a lot of things to take into account. Everybody's goal when they go out to run an endurance race is they want to run to the front and win their class or win overall. We all want to do that. But it takes having a real.
How many people win? I'm just curious. How many win?
One team wins.
Ah, one. Okay. All right. I was just checking.
But you have to go out there with a lot of all your knowns in mind and also some unknowns in mind. You don't know what's going to happen to you, but your goal is to go out there and you want to stay out there as long as your team has planned for you to stay out there. That's kind of your first goal, right?
Sure. Absolutely.
So you go out there. You also. Your goals for a stint should they be car specific? Like if you know your car has certain foibles or problems?
I think they could be. They don't necessarily have to be. I think let's take a step back. So does the team need to have a goal and then your goals come from that?
I think that sounds really good. So maybe the team's goals should inform my own goals.
Sure. I think so. Because certain cars don't go to the track for every race thinking first or bust, right?
Right. That's true.
But some do.
Yeah. Some of us are going to go out.
And those goals would be different.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely know, at least with our team, sometimes the goal just comes down to managing this one potential mechanical problem above all other things so we can all drive. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes it comes
survival.
Yeah, I mean, often it comes down to don't touch fifth gear, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But
we have a car that is the rule. There is no fifth gear, even though it looks like there is one. Even though there's a spot you can put it in.
I wasn't thinking about your car, but your car is the one that inspired the comment. I don't even know where it came from. To you remind me that, you have a truck that you can't hit fifth gear in. But yeah,
you can.
You don't want to,
but don't.
But yeah, so often in endurance racing where we all show up to the track, on the way down, we're all planning for what we're going to be doing as we're winning the race. But as the race unfolds, sometimes minor tragedies strike, and your goal may end up just being like, hey, our team goal is we want to get everybody out there at least, because sometimes just junk has gone so bad. You're like, okay, Sunday morning, now the goal is we're just going to try to get some seat time for everybody, right? Like we've all been there.
Yep.
So I mean, I go to the track. My main goal, before I even go through the gates of the track, is to manage my expectations and hope that they evolve with what's happening. Because it's easy to get sucked into a world of misery at an endurance race if you walked in with your mindset on we're going to win this thing, and if anything goes wrong, because stuff's always going to go wrong. So at least for me, I have more fun if my expectations are malleable and I'm ready to kind of roll with the punches. Because endurance racing is all punches, unless you're the guy who won, I think.
Yeah, pretty much.
But
it's just how many times you get kicked in the teeth. Right?
Right. We're there for the punches, and the punches are part of the fun. So yeah, in my mind, I guess we could talk about this for hours and hours and hours. But I mean, ultimately, if you're doing endurance racing, your goal is to try to get everybody who's participating with your team to do what their function is. If it's driving, if it's helping out, so it's sometimes it can be very fraught, but sometimes stuff just clicks off and everybody gets to drive. And so when things are going that well and everybody's getting to drive their predetermined stints, then that's when you sort of start to get to up your goals. So like, all right, let's start working on some strategy goals and how to work flags when they happen and that sort of thing. But so often it ends up just being survival goals, like you said.
So how much importance do you place on being the fastest person in the car that weekend?
Me, myself?
You yourself.
I don't care. I'm much more concerned if we all have a close. I would rather us all be very close in times and consistent. There's no value to me in being the fastest person.
You don't get the stock bonuses from that?
Those checks have not hit my mailbox yet.
All right. Well, it must be COVID that's slowing them down.
But if there are checks for that, there should be a few headed my way. But no, I don't care about that. There's a whole lot more value and pride involved for me if I'm driving with a bunch of people who we've selected each other well and we're doing well in the car and all running within a couple of seconds of each other. That means that we're doing a true representation of what the vehicle we brought to the race can do.
Right. Or maybe a little off of that. But,
right.
So it'll make
we're doing a true representation of a tight grouping of similarly skilled drivers, which is about my best feeling in a race. Even if we're not winning, we're all good showing means a lot to me.
So you'd rather, from a statistical standpoint, you'd want the standard deviation to be quite narrow.
Yes, tight delta.
Or if you're an archer, you want to have a very tight grouping of your targets, whether it's bullseye or not.
Exactly. Yeah, I want a tight grouping. That's the term I always use, but I didn't want to hit that jargon out there. But once you said it, that's what I'm always saying. I want a tight grouping. It's much more important than having three guys who are 10 seconds off the one guy is very fast, which has happened.
Oh yeah. I mean, if somebody who really knows how to drive comes on our team, like you,
I don't know about that.
or there's some scary fast people out there. They're going to be fast. Like when Randy took our car that one time, he's definitely faster than we are. No problem. Understood. But I always think that to me, when I look at things, I actually look at our race times for the weekend. I take out all the yellow flags and I look at the average and standard deviation. And the person I think who did the best job with handling traffic and dealing with things that just happen, because you got 100 cars out on the track, is the person who has the smallest deviation between their fastest laps and their slower laps.
I'll add in this, at least to me, the best lap time doesn't matter at all. It's who's making production, who's running similar laps, whether you passed 5 cars that lap or whether you pass 2 cars. I think that makes a whole lot better drivers the person who can go making very consistent laps regardless of traffic. If you're somebody who can slice through traffic without letting it affect your lap times very much, I think you're doing it right. Yeah,
exactly. So what about team alignment? Do you have to? If you're an endurance racing team, is it important that you guys and girls and everybody there agree? Because otherwise, I think it leads to some friction or some.
Yeah, that's weird. I'm trying to think. I'm not sure I've ever been in a setting with a team that there wasn't this sort of alignment where we would all agree, okay, here's what we're going to do. We've never had anybody rebel that badly where it's okay, this person's a terrible fit for our team. I'm sure it happens, but I've tried to work
driving drives hard. Maybe.
Yeah, I could see that happen with an arrive and drive. We've had an arrive and drive show up and for sure nuke our engine and be I don't know what happened when we had it all on video. So stuff happens all the time. But so yes, I guess I should say that guy obviously wasn't in alignment with us since he wouldn't put on glasses to be able to see the gauges and then blew our car up. So
You mean it doesn't rev to 10,000?
I guess our goal should have been our first goal should have been to make sure everybody could see the gauges. So yeah, like literally we showed up to the track with the guy who couldn't see the gauges and wouldn't do anything about it. He was just going to feel it out, and he blew our engine up. So sometimes your goals have to start at the very beginning. Like, can you see all the things inside here?
Yeah. Can you see the car in front of you? Good plan.
Oh, he just couldn't see the stuff right in front of him. He was ripping in traffic. I think he set near the fast lap for the race. It was doing great, except for blowing the engine.
So, how much? That just and you've done a lot more of this racing than me. So, how much time do you save over a weekend by having one lap that's 2 seconds faster than every other lap when you blow up the engine on Saturday? I'm just curious. Is it more?
Oh man. Well, I think if you blow the engine on that lap, then it's probably not going to be the fastest lap. It sounds counterproductive. Even if you set the fast lap and the engine blows as you cross the finish line.
Yeah.
I don't know, Bill. I don't know. It just doesn't sound like the way to win.
Perhaps not the key to endurance racing.
I don't know. I guess you could try it, but probably not.
Well, it's probably one of the few things we haven't done yet. So,
Have you guys never blown an engine?
Not yet.
Oh man, I'll tell you what. When I started go-kart racing, I got it in my head that somehow if I could chill my methanol, I would get a little more power out of it. So the one
it's
night
denser too, so you can fit more in.
Right. So one night, I've been chilling my methanol all night, and like pulling it out of the cooler, making sure nobody was looking at it, pouring it in. And I ventilated a block that night, like bang, big old hole in the side. I don't know if it had anything to do with chilled methanol, but I was just doing one wacky thing. I did so much wacky Mr. Wizard stuff when I used to race cars. I have no idea if it worked or not, but I blew my engine. I'm leading the race, like, yeah, bang! Like, whoa, what was that noise? And then suddenly, no go.
Yeah. The only thing funnier than your story was when you asked if we had blown an engine, and I said no. The surprised look on your face was priceless.
Yeah. I mean, also, I have the suspicion you guys are probably not running anything hard enough to blow it up yet.
Oh wow, I feel hurt.
Let's get out there. Let's blow some stuff up.
All right, very well. Technically, every time the engine goes around, I've blown up like 6 or 7 times.
That's right. Little micro explosions.
That's right. So technically, yeah. All right. If you don't finish the race, you tend not to win. Just
Yeah. I guess there's probably some granular stuff we could talk about as far as goals for endurance racing, though. I'm just sort of trying to think. I mean, you're going to have some mechanical stuff. You have goals like, hey, make sure we watch the temperature. That might be your big goals. Make sure you watch your water temp.
Yep. Oil.
Yeah, just you may have a goal where it's like, hey, we're leading the class. Because endurance racing, the way the classes work, you might be in the class that's super competitive, and you might be in one where it's like, hey, we're up on the guy. He's like 5 laps behind us. So really all we need to do is go out. Our good lap is a 1:30. All I need every driver to do for the rest of the day is go run 140s because they're running 145s back there. That's all we got to do, right? That could be a goal, right?
Save gas, save brakes.
For sure. There are going to be times where you have to go out and save gas. So just for example, last December, I raced Blake Field's 808 S10. It's got a fuel cell in it. And I think my first stint was going to be a 2-hour stint, and on a full tank of fuel, you can't go full chat with that thing. You got to kind of roll out and save some fuel, roll out of the throttle early. So I think I had a goal of, I think we had like an RPM goal where like if you were in traffic, you could have 6,000 RPMs trying to beat somebody out of traffic. But other than that, we want everybody to shift at 5,200 RPM, something like that. So our goal was an RPM goal to try to save fuel, but I got to start the race, and it was the shorter stint because of Jesus Hour or something in Atlanta.
Oh, yeah, I know all about that, yeah.
So I got the Jesus Hour stint that was only going to be an hour and a half or something like that, and I was like, all right, you can go whole hog on revs and do this. So I got to run a little quicker the next day. So that was, so goals can be all over the place, but they can be essential to making your race work the way you want it to. So, for example, in that race with Lemons down at Road Atlanta, we had to run 2-hour stints on Saturday and run kind of slow, but we were still way faster than the leader in B class. So we were in good shape, but it was kind of weird running a race not pushing hard. I don't think I'd ever had to save fuel in an endurance race until then, for real. It's interesting. And before that, I think a couple of years before that, I got to drive the Knox Vegas Lowballers Hoopty Corn.
Yeah.
That crazy Mustang, the first gen Mustang grafted onto a Contour SVT, I think. Anyway, driving that car, going in, the caveat and the goal was stay off the curbs. And this was at CMP, which is a place where running all across the curbs can make you a lot faster. So it was weird. I'd run CMP a million times, but I had never done it with, taking minimal or no curbs. So I had to go into this race sort of relearning the track a little bit to stay off the curb. So that was our goal in that car, was just that, stuff was fragile enough in there that we didn't want to be just clouding every curb we ran across. So sometimes goals, like we keep talking about, they may be a little esoteric or not straight across what you're used to, but they may be essential for keeping you on course and keeping the car alive all weekend.
Yeah. I mean, there's several times where you can give up a second or two or even 5 seconds a lap. And if you can avoid one pit stop, counting the time for the stop itself and the in and the out, you can save 6, 7, 8 minutes.
For sure.
That could for sure make the difference between winning and losing. Might not, but could.
And that may take you right back to one of your team's central goals. So all the stuff Bill was just talking about with numbers and lap times, I am too dumb to understand. So one of our team goals was to have smart people on the team. As it happens with Winsome Racing, there's me, the dummy, and we ended up with 3 very smart people around me. So that was one of my goals, and look at us. We're pretty good.
There you go. Okay, you know what I heard? I heard you win some.
We lose a lot.
But you lose a lot.
We have fun, though. That's what it's all about.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
All right.
Dominating with Dawson.
Okay, Ben, we were talking about the different ways that a car goes around a turn. And, when you're doing the first level model, you always think about, a standard 90-degree turn going around the racetrack, or left or right, doesn't really matter. But there's other things that you need to think about that affect that turn, right? Such as whether the turn is on camber or off camber, whether Vicky knows what camber is.
Still working on camber.
Camber.
Yeah, me too. Camber. I learned camber at Gingerman.
That's right.
Yeah.
So let's just go through a couple of the things. If the turn is on camber or off camber, how does that affect the way the car is going to behave?
Well, on camber, that's the same as like when you look at NASCAR where they race at Bristol. That would be on camber, big banking in your favor, right? Bank back toward you in the car. So that means that's on camber or banked. Oh, it's a cute puppy dog.
Yep. Ziggy has made his appearance.
So on camber is going to help you. It's kind of like driving into a pocket. So you're going to have more grip than you would with a flat turn or a turn that's off camber or banked away from you.
Okay, and then off camber would tend to make the car push or less responsive, and the on camber would make it a little more responsive.
Yeah, the car is more likely to rotate with your inputs more easily in an on camber situation where the turn is banked the same way that in the same direction it's going.
Okay. What if the turn isn't absolutely smooth? What if there's like a dip or a bump?
Bonus.
Should you? Well, one of those is a bonus, I think. I'm not sure both are a bonus.
I mean, these are, surface variations are things that you have to account for. And plenty of times in my experience, it's been people who are like, hey, you got to watch out for the so-and-so. Does that really mess you up? Like, I remember when I first started driving at Sears Point, I was driving lemons, and people were like, oh, watch out coming out of turn 7. There's a big dip, and if you hit it wrong, you're done. Of course, I was out there driving cars that had like 9 horsepower, so I'm sure I could hit, I could hit a speed bump and nothing would happen. But yeah, I mean, even driving pretty hard, I would come out of turn 7 as hard as I needed to, wherever I needed to. I never hit a dip that was going to send me off into the stratosphere. So you have to listen to people when they talk about variations. And you go to a new track and somebody's like, "Hey, you got to watch out. There's a big hump going across the so and so or whatever." Pay attention to it. Feel it out for yourself. Half the time, in my experience, if people warn you about some legendary foible or dangerous thing at a track, it's not anything. So I think you have to pay attention to it. But if it's something that's disruptive, you have to account for it with your speed. You may have to go through it 10 miles an hour slower than you would if there was no big dip there. Like I think turn 17 at Sebring is a good example of that. It's a turn that would be pretty quick, but it's like rough as a cob. So you just go through like just bouncing, just trying to keep the car from getting out of shape, so you can't go through as fast as you normally would. So that's a place where if you go watch some videos of turn 17 at Sebring, it's a good example of kind of one of the worst case scenarios.
What about if it's a hill, and by hill, that could be something scary like turn 12 at Road Atlanta, or it could be just a crest, something where you crest and you come up the hill and then you go over the hill. Is that going to affect you?
Sure. Like I think you brought up a great example with Road Atlanta. So you kind of got bookends at either end of that straightaway. So the first turn is a turn where you kind of are diving up into a hill. It's cambered in your favor a little bit, so you get to rotate better, but also you get the added compression of a hill, which helps your braking. So you don't have to hit the brakes as hard as you would if you were headed, in a flat surface or headed downhill. So if you're headed downhill, you got to brake a lot harder. So if you're headed up into a hill, into a fast turn like that, like turn 1 at Road Atlanta, the hill gives you a little bit of help. The camber gives you a little bit of help, but then again, coming down the other side, I think you still get some benefit of camber coming down turn 12, but it's just scary because you're going so fast and it's so open. So in that case, I don't know that the hill is hurting you as much as your natural fear of being dead. But yeah, I mean, you come slamming down that hill, and you have to be aware of the fact that you're headed downhill, and that that's pushing you harder than you would be if you were just coming across that same radius as a flat corner. So yeah.
So Road Atlanta story time. So I'm still in the midst of parking my trailer, and this guy walks up to me, and he's like, "Have you been here before?" I'm like, "No, Road Atlanta has probably the most intimidating pull into the tracks area."
Yeah, it does.
Because
It really does.
You go through the gate, and then all of a sudden you're falling off a table down the hill, and then you're going back up the hill, and it's just like I can't even drive into the track, never mind on the track. So anyway, I'm talking to the guy. I'm still backing up my trailer, and he's like, "Have you been here before?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "Well, there's one thing you can't do: never, ever lift going down through 12, or else you're in the wall."
Never listen to people who tell you stuff like that. That's what you never do, is you never listen to people who tell you junk like that.
And I'm just sitting there going, all right, I guess. I don't know. But it's 33 degrees and raining. I'll tell you, this little fisher, his butt was puckered, and and I was making diamonds, baby. And there was no chance I was going down that hill flat, not lifting at all. But anyway, I was just like, "You're crazy, man." So that was the same team that punted one into the wall during practice on Friday. But whatever.
So, did you also want to talk about curbs? Is that part of this?
I was going to say there's other things. There's curves or candies and all kinds of different things, and some of them have the rumble strips, and some of them are just painted. How does that affect you, and how should you think about the use or non-use? Because sometimes you want to use them, and sometimes you want to avoid them. How would you incorporate them into your driving strategy, depending on their morphology, their shape, their size,
I'm pretty much going to sail across any curb that it's there, because that's going to increase my geometrical advantage. So if it's a curb that's in the way of me getting a faster lap, I'm going to just jump right across it. Hopefully, most of the times I would say curbing at the track makes sense for where you'd want to be. It's, a genuine apex curb. I've been to a few tracks that kind of missed it a little bit, so you're not really apexing at the curb or anything. But for the most part, it's where you want to be, at the outside, inside, and the exit. So, in general, if there's a good apex curb and a good exit curb, like for example, coming out of turn 12 at Road Atlanta, you got, it feels like 6 inches of curb, and I would guess it's a couple of feet of curb coming out of turn 12. So I'm figuring that in as part of my exit. I mean, every time I'm coming out of turn 12 at Road Atlanta, I'm expecting to land my left side tires out there. So curbs are surface to me as long as they make geometrical sense to run across them, as long as they're not too punitive. There's a few cases like CMP's got a couple of places where the curbs are so much of a washboard that it actually bounces the car around too much, or I'm not even sure it slows you down, but it just beats you to death to get out there. We've had it like knock our exhaust off before, stuff like that. So you have to be aware there's some curbs so rough that it might shake something loose off your janky ass race car or something like that. So you want to kind of be aware of mechanical damage. And also almost always at the end of a curb, there's a big drop off. So at the beginning and the end of a curb, you don't want to just jump right at the end of a curb or jump jump right at the beginning or fall off the end of the curb. For the most part, you want to be done with the curb well before it's over. Generally the curbing is longer than what you actually need to be on it. Because it's just usually there's like a hole and a divot because people keep always dropping their wheels off there. So that can really damage your car. So use curbs, but you have to know what you're doing.
Yeah, I use the short side curb entry one time at Mid Ohio, and I never did it again because it was like hitting a curb. Like
yeah. I mean, so if the profiling is wrong for the racetrack, I mean, if it's not a curb you can gently kind of slope up onto, if you're worried the curb is going to hurt your car, definitely skip it. But for my home track, VIR, which we always talk about,
I've never heard of this track. Which track is this?
There are probably only a couple of curbs on the full course lap that just don't make sense for me to hit. So I either run right next to them or just not near them. And it's sometimes it's depending on what car you're driving. So we talk about sometimes there's a horsepower line and a momentum line. So that might vary whether or not you're stomping over different curbs. But for the most part, if the curb is there, if the curbing is there, and it helps me get a better advantage and a better line around the track where I've got to be, where I can get back in the throttle and get the wheel straight faster, I'm going to be all over that curb. I've driven maybe one race car, it wasn't mine. I've driven one race car where it's like, hey, this thing can't take curbs. So I had to kind of relearn driving a lap at CMP with no curbs. So it was kind of weird, but it's in some cases you may end up driving somebody's car where they say, hey, this thing can't handle a curb, and you just have to learn how to drive without them, but it's not ideal.
So there was one other thing about curbing that came up, and I think I'm not sure I'm brilliant. Well, I'm pretty sure I'm not, but it seemed to matter more the surface condition of the curb if it's wet, or especially if it's a inside the turn curb versus an outside the turn curb, because the pressure applied is so much different. The one on the inside, I really don't care because those wheels are unweighted. But the one on the outside, that one I cared more about whether it was a smooth, grippy curb or whether it was a rumble strip or just like ice if it was wet. Do you agree?
For me, I think if it's a painted curb or not, the inside curb, if it's raining and your car is not rotating as well as you might like because it's raining, sometimes I'll try out those inside curbs to help me kind of yank the car around, get the car rotated without me having to let off as much or go as slowly. So I'll at least always feel out the curbs on the inside curbs on the rain. As far as trying to get on the outside curbs or worry about the condition that those are in, if it's the rain, you're probably not driving so fast that you're forced out there. So you definitely have time to work your way out there and see what they feel like. I mean, we talk about driving in the wet. I'm sure I've talked about this before, but my first and only time driving at Watkins Glen, we started a sort of wet race, and just the line that denotes the pit lane, the sort of a separate lane you get in to go in the pits. Just that line coming through turn, I think that's a turn 11, the last turn. Mark, is that the right turn number?
I think it's 11. It's 11 or 12. I can't remember.
Okay, whatever the last turn on the straightaway is, just coming across that relatively fast turn, I hit that little 6 inches of yellow, and it almost threw me completely off the track. So it's definitely worth your time in wet conditions to feel out what everything's going to do. But once you figure out areas that you can exploit, like maybe there's a couple of inside curbs that you can use to help you hork the car around while you maintain a little bit better corner speed than the rest of traffic, then you're going to learn what to fear and what to exploit, and it's probably going to be changing every lap. But curbing is probably going to need to be part of your rain racing strategy if you want to dominate.
Yeah, the other thing that we've noticed, especially when we do the track walks, is sometimes there's little patches, and they can be either something you aim at or different grip in different areas, or sometimes there's actually a pavement change, like part of the track is concrete versus part of the track is asphalt. And you're shaking your head no, so I'm an idiot. So what did I say?
I'm just shaking my head no because I hear all that stuff all the time too. And unless it's like an extreme example, which I'm not even able to think of, So as far as we're talking about just driving in the dry, I am never thinking about a surface patch. I'm never like, people are like, hey, watch for this discoloration here, and that's where you brake, or, watch out, this is a little bit less this, a little bit less that. I mean, even kind of there's some big surface variations at a place like Barber. You know what I'm talking about? Have you guys been to Barber?
On not in meat space, but on iRacing.
Okay, but in meat space, there's kind of some varied surface between the exits and the main track and that sort of thing, and even between all that, it didn't make any difference to me. Of course, also you always have to filter any Dawson advice through the fact that maybe the most powerful car I've driven on track might have been 225 horsepower.
Right.
So it's a whole different world for the people who are driving big ground pounders with multiple hundreds of horsepower. So right. you have to always filter my advice through like a momentum car filter. But for the most part, I'm not eyeballing different surfaces or anything like that. If you're hammering around an E36 or a Miata or something like that, mm-hmm. I don't think it makes a huge difference, at least not to me, and I hit it pretty hard.
Well, I was saying that you could use the discoloration to be kind of something to locate your line to or from.
Oh, yeah. People do that. People right. do that.
And then the one time that comes to mind that it did apply was, I don't know if you've been to Thompson yet, but it's basically a road course with an oval in it, and the oval had two lines of pavement, and one was very smooth and one was very sticky because they had prepped it for, I don't know if it was an ARCA course or something. So it had like,
right, so you got concrete and asphalt with a pretty big variation right there next to each other.
Right, and one of them is prepped with like this, I don't know what they call it, but anyway, it turned the surface strip? And yeah, it was gummy.
Yeah, so if it's a drag strip, it's probably VHT. It's that stuff that will pull your shoes off. You're standing at the starting line, it will yank your shoes off.
So there was a difference in the pavement in that condition. Yeah. You can either.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
Yeah.
That's a pretty extreme example.
Yeah. And it's just, it was like, okay. And then I've been to a track where it was like, the drag strip or the oval was made of concrete and the rest of it was asphalt. And, so things to take into account. Vicky, Jen?
I think there are things to watch out for, but there are so many things that people at the track will run up to you and go, hey, you got to watch out for this. You got to watch out for that. Take everything with a grain of salt and go feel it out for yourself. There's a lot of people who like to panic about a lot of stuff that they don't need to worry about at the track. So,
True.
Nothing's out there to get you. Just have fun.
Vicky, Jen, anything?
I'm good.
Okay.
I just need seat time.
Okay.
Yeah, seat time's what makes you faster and more competitive, which is obvious to you ladies is important, which I think is super fun to watch y'all get faster and have more fun with this. They will. The one thing I will say though, when you go to New Hampshire and people say stay off the turtle. The turtle will mess you up.
Turtle will mess you up.
Now it's true. There are a few things at my own home track that are like little magic spots where I have to tell people, don't do that. It looks like you could do it, but that will definitely throw you off the track. So yeah, you're right. I mean, you have to listen to what everybody says. Go feel it out for yourself. But I mean, take what I think. My advice is to take what people say into account. Like if somebody's warned me about something, I'm going to watch for it when I go out and kind of give it a couple of mulligans. But then if it didn't seem like a big deal, I'm going to hammer it.
Yep. The turtle, for those at home, is like a 4 or 5 inch high bump that has the shape of like a box turtle, and it's on the inside apex as you're coming back into the NASCAR track at New Hampshire. And if you hit that thing, it is a monster. So it's like the flashing red button and it's like, don't hit the button, don't hit the button. It's like, it looks so good. That's exactly right. You're gonna hit the button, hit the button. Don't hit the button. The button's bad. Don't hit the button. So words of wisdom from Ben Dawson: do not hit the button. All right, thank you, Ben.
All right.
Dominating with Dawson.
All right, Ben, we're back again. We've got Vicky and Jen with us, and we are working our way through. Since we're kind of COVID required to stay distant, we've done a lot of HPDs and not a lot of racing this season.
Good.
But they are working their way up through their HPDE training schedule, and one thing that's coming up soon, I see, is their ability to drive is starting to get to the point where it's starting to feel a little uncomfortable. And as it gets better, as you go faster, there's an associated self-preservation fear factor that pops in where you actually don't push yourself because you're intimidated or you're scared of what could happen to you or the car or embarrassment or whatever. And it's something people generally need to work through. But since you've apparently had that dissected out of your body, I thought we'd talk about it a little bit and see if you remember back when you were human and how it was at the time as you progressed, and possibly things we could do to help people work with that, because it is part of racing.
Well, that's it's very nice of you guys to think about helping me to repair my sense of fear. I remember when I was starting to drive, I started in karts, and the same thing happened when I started driving cars. It was this similar phenomenon. I had to learn to trust that the vehicle and the tires could do what people were telling me they could do. Like, I mean, when I started kart racing, I could see people going out and running the track flat out, and I was like, whoa, there's no way I'm going to fly off the end of the course. So for me, one of my big issues that I had to overcome was just learning to trust. I just had a big trust issue with believing that the tires were going to do what they were supposed to do each time I went around the course, and believing that I mean, it seems like you're asking a vehicle to do something that I mean, I definitely took the dummy physics class, but I was there enough to realize I'm asking for a lot of different things out of the car that you don't expect the car to do. So I had to build a lot of trust before I could start to go fast.
So Jennifer, this I think would particularly fit your personality, because you're one of the people who has to approach it slowly from
Cautiously?
from the cautious side of the world, as opposed to Ben's home.
Yeah.
What are you thinking when you're starting to explore a limit that you haven't done? Is it something that bothers you, or what exactly are we getting to?
I don't know that it bothers because I'm aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
It was something I wasn't very comfortable with. So, like, it's me kind of overcoming my anxiety with it. Like, it's just something I've resolved to conquer. Do you know what I mean? So I know that as I get better, I'm more comfortable and it's less fearful, but I mean, it just, I don't know, like every time, the whole time I've been doing this, there's always been that, I guess, fear factor, you know what I mean? But it's just something, it's getting better with certain things. And then, you know, as you progress, there's like new things you're learning, and then there's another fear factor. Do you know what I mean? So you get comfortable with it. So, you know, it's a process, but like,
That's funny. I was listening to you talking. You're so right. Like, there's more things to be scared of. Like, the more things you get to like push away and not be scared of, there's more new things to be scared of. Like, as soon as I got better, then I started being scared of choking in front of my buddies. Like, oh, I'm gonna screw up in front of my buddies and they're gonna laugh at me, kind of being scared.
Right.
So yeah, it evolves.
yeah.
We laugh at you, Ben. Don't worry.
But the things that I was worried about before, I'm not as worried about. But, you know, there's still things that I still need to get over. But I don't know.
Well,
I mean, it wasn't like I went into any of this, you know, thinking, yeehaw. You know what I mean? Like, it's always just kind of been there. But it's something I really want to do. But, you know, there's
he lost her.
anxiety with it. Yeah.
Oh,
but
there it is.
it's a process. So, yeah.
So-
Didn't they say like anxiety and excitement are kind of the same feeling? You just have to determine which one it is.
Yeah. For me, early on when I first started racing karts, like, I started this whole thing because I was pretty good at doing racing on a PC. And I was like, and I'd always been a giant racing fan. I finally got enough money together after I got my first job out of college to get some old used car. But so I was so excited to go out and do it. But I was also I have imposter syndrome really badly. So one of my big fears was just like being rejected, to get like, ha, you don't belong here, get out. Like, just because I was just this crazy person. But like, I would, like, before I ever won, like, I think after I won my first heat race, this went away. But every time I would come over the hill and I could see the kart track for the first time, like, it felt like somebody dropped a bowling ball in my gut. And I was just like, oh, you know, I was so scared until I had some success or kind of a breakthrough. But I definitely can understand there's so many different things to be apprehensive of and scared about. And I always forget when I'm sitting there in a DE, like driver's meeting at a DE thing, I'm just waiting to like meet my student to get out and fix whatever I'm waiting to fix on my car. But I forget that half the people in there maybe their first time at the track and they're sitting there with their bowels are liquefied, they're scared to death. But for me, I'm just like, all right, I gotta do this trailing arm thing, blah, blah, blah. Like, so everybody's at a different place in the journey all the time.
Oh, it is. And also being female, like there's, in
Ben
some
understands
ways it's better, but in some ways it's not. Like in some ways the expectation really isn't there. You know what I mean? From men, you know what I mean? Like, oh, she's a girl. You know what I mean? But then
Unfortunately,
on
I
the
do
other
that.
hand, it's like you feel pressure to be good. So yeah.
Yeah, that's an added stressor that I could definitely I can't
Yeah.
I haven't coped with, but I can
You
certainly
can't relate to
understand.
that then.
I can't relate, but I can see it wide open. I mean, I see it at the track all the time.
Yeah.
You know, when I see the way men treat women drivers at the track, and it's sometimes it's heartening. More often, it's infuriating.
Yeah. But
True.
you know, I mean, but again, like then, you know, if you do something or mess up, it's kind of like, oh well, they really weren't expecting a whole lot anyway, so you know, just keep going.
You
So
take the allowances you can get, right?
yeah.
So what is it that are there any like generic areas that are inducing that feeling in you still, Jen?
Yes. And actually, it's nothing that I don't think I'm going to learn in HPDE 1. So, I mean, that's why I like the HPDE so much, is because it is very controlled. I do have a fear of all the cars on the track and passing and just being in a group of cars, and that's only going to get better with racing with a group of cars. You know what I mean? HPD is, you don't have to worry about any of that because everything is so controlled, and you know, the passing and everybody's using hand signs and you know, but you get to the race and it's like, oh, that goes out the window. So, but there's and that's partly because of, you know, being in the accident, and yeah. So, but that'll get better, and I know it'll get better. So, yeah, it's not enough to make me not want to do it, but I know it's there. So.
Do you have a bad track experience already? This
Yeah.
coloring? Oh yeah. Well, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
you get every allowance if you already had something bad happen to you. You definitely got plenty to work your way back from. It sounds like luckily I kind of got to develop mostly without anything bad happening before I started racing. So I kind of had a lot of just happy time at the track for the most part. I also had a Miata, so that was part of it too. Like nothing breaks on a Miata.
Yeah. So, but it's all good. It's not enough to make me not want to do it. It's just enough to keep me cautious, you know.
Oh, it's natural too. I mean, you know.
Well, absolutely, and I recognize that. So.
What about you, Miss Vicky? Was this a factor for you?
He's got no fear.
I sometimes I as I'm going around a turn full blast, mentally I feel like I have control of the car, but pushing that limit, there is that little bit of anxiety, just a tiny bit, but it's like excitement anxiety. And usually when I'm going around and I feel like I'm losing, I would be saying, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, as I'm going around a turn full blast, but the word is not crap. It usually starts with an F. So,
fantasy.
Oh, forget about it. Oh, forget about it.
Yeah,
oh, forget about it. Over and over. She's doing that over and over the whole lap. Oh, forget about it.
Yeah.
I got it. I know what you're saying.
Yeah. And that's me whipping around the turn going, I can do it. Oh, my training tells me I can do it, but it's constantly pushing against that wall of courage, you know, of,
First time.
you know, for the breakthrough. Because I know I can do it. Yeah, that's
for you,
me constantly.
Your next breakthrough is just hearing something, right? You just need to hear something to know you
I
can
need
push
to hear the
something.
tires.
Yeah,
I need
so,
to hear
right.
the tires. And then, and you know, I'm really anxious to get back in the seat again.
Yeah, it's wild. I realized
really
before this call, like I can't even. I think I used to drive race cars. Like I have a vague sense that I am somebody who used to drive race cars and now talks about it a lot. But it seems like a long time since I've done it.
Yeah, but I'm not afraid of car clutter, trains of other people on the track, that doesn't bother me at all. Like I can be a very fast, close and that I'm not worried about that.
That's cool.
It's the only stressors that I have is fighting for an apex, and trying to make sure that I don't lose the back end, because I'm really thinking that skid pad's really going to help me.
Oh, sure. I mean, I think a skid pad will help any driver just about at any phase in their development.
Yeah,
I've never gotten to do it, but I'd love to. I mean, it was started by the Penske team. They started doing it just to get their cars sorted out for Can-Am competition. So obviously it's got a good beginnings, and then people have used it to great effect to get the drivers trained. I mean, in a skid pad, ideally you get out there and you get one end going away from you control the slide around. So it's a great way to learn all the car control stuff that I learned at much higher stakes,
right.
and not dying as a teenager.
Yeah, but
right.
Yeah, I would say nervous energy sometimes going around a turn. Fun, but fun. Like I can't wait to do it again and nail it.
Have you tried just pushing harder than you think it'll do and see what happens?
Yeah, I have.
And then you go off?
Sometimes, not often, but I think that when I actually kind of felt that slid was, or that slide in the back end was Road Atlanta. And I'm like, that car slid around. They're like, well, that's what you want. And that's when I realized that I'm supposed to be sliding a little bit. But, I kind of had it, controlled it, but I didn't control it enough to where I still lost speed doing it because I was uncertain. But
also the first time, and it was 33 degrees and raining, and you were coming
my
into
hands
10A,
were
10B, and your hands were the shape of a lobster claw. And
my hands were frozen, cupped around the steering wheel.
Yeah, I mean, as you go through more and more experiences with different surfaces, more HPDE experience, you'll kind of develop a little fast hand shuffle. I'm kind of doing it where nobody can see it on the podcast,
Mm-hmm.
but when you're kind of going to develop a little correction, a little method for corrections that, if the car steps out a little bit, you'll get a sense for how to correct it without being a big event and move on with your life. So things that currently seem like a huge disruption to you now won't seem like a big deal once you've been doing this 4 or 5 years. Like you watch IMSA guys driving around in an IMSA race or something like that. They're always shuffling the wheel and working it and all that kind of stuff. Each one of those little things that they're doing, each one of those corrections that you see on an in-car camera is a little wreck that they didn't let happen, or a big wreck that they didn't let happen. So it's that's another thing that comes back around to car control is just being able to handle the little variations and oops, I tried too hard, but here's how I catch it without it being a big deal. That's going on all the time with the folks who are super fast. So it's something to aspire to and something to work up to, but not something that's required of you right now. As long as you can keep a car on the track and are having fun driving it, that's what's required of you right now.
And just
keep the car on the track most of the time.
Yeah, but keep pushing your limit just a little bit.
Sure, definitely. But nobody's out there pushing you to do more than what you're doing except yourself. So if you're safely keeping the car out there, develop and get faster at your own pace that you enjoy.
Yeah.
Fear is natural.
Yes.
Try to push just a little bit.
I hear people talking about it. I guess it's a thing. I don't know. Fear.
Yeah. You can grow out of it, Ben.
No fear.
It's
courage. Okay. It's courage. It's not fear so much as it is courage.
I lost some of my courage when I had a kid. I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that's an impact nobody talks about. All right. Sounds like we're working on it. We'll keep going. Thank you, Ben.
Yeah.
Thanks,
right.
Ben.
Dominating with Dawson.
Ben Dawson. We're back for another Dominating with Dawson.
Here we go.
So we were talking amongst our team, and we had lots of discussion over, not only making sure that our team was aligned, which I think is important,
right?
But should we have goals for a stint? Like take, for instance, an HPDE. If I'm going out on an HPDE stint, I like to have 1, 2, or 3 goals, depending on where it is and how well I know the track. And then I like to report back on how I did it. And it works for me because I seem to get more out of it. But I wasn't sure if I'm being overly thinking Bill I was nice and said thinking. But I was just wondering what your thoughts were in terms of, do you set goals when you go out for a stint? Do you remember back in the days with the Flintstone tires when you took your HPDEs? Would you set goals, or you think it's good for your students to set goals?
Yeah, I think everybody who gets in a car at the racetrack has a goal in mind. Your instructor gets in the car with you with a goal in mind of making you faster and keeping you alive. But yeah, a learning student in an HPDE is going to hopefully get in with an idea of what they want to work on to get quicker and more consistent. Back in those days, if I was at a track and I was having a tough time negotiating a certain section of the track, I would probably head out for the next session thinking like, okay, I'm going to concentrate on this braking zone I'm having a tough time with, or these sequence of turns I'm having a tough time working my car through. So those are the sort of things I would think about. But, even these days when we go to an HPDE with our race cars, we're going to go in there with an idea of, okay, let me back up. We are at an HPDE event with our race cars because we need to test out, make sure something is going to work for the next race we signed up for. Of course, I love to help people get faster and instruct, but you're only ever going to see me at the racetrack at one of those events. For the most part, if I'm there with a race car trying to figure out something for the next race. So I'm there at a DE session with a goal of finding out like, hey, we're going to make a wing change and see how this does, and we're going to go test in that session. So from every level, from beginning driver to fairly accomplished racers to professional teams, if they're at the track, they're all there with a goal, and they're going to roll out of the track with the goal. So a pro team is going to go out there and test changes and test all the different components that they have available to us. And a beginning driver is going to go out there and see what 2 pounds of air pressure into the rear tires does for his Honda Civic. Does that make sense?
It does. I think the thing I always get worried about, because goals are kind of a thing for me, along with planning, making sure that they're good goals, not vague goals like go faster.
Right. Sure. You want to make it a focus goal.
Something that you can say yes or no. Like, I mean, yes, you can say you went faster or not, but you don't really know what you did. So I would think something like, it's different if you have telemetry in the car, but if it's something like learn the track, if it's a new track to you, that might be a goal, because you don't want to push too hard on a track you don't know if you're going left or right. But
of course, then again, if it's a track you've been at 20 times, you're like, I'm just going to go out there and kind of keep learning the track. Then you might be a sort of an empty goal.
Yeah, kind of.
Right?
Not going to get a whole lot out of that one.
Well, right. But then again, if I've been to that track 20 times and I see cars that are much like mine going through turn 3 and they're beating me, they're going faster, like I should be able to keep up with that car. I know I'm running the same tire, running the same brakes. We've got the same amount of power. If it's me and another Miata and we're both racing spec Miatas, and I'm like, hey, that guy can take that corner 5 miles an hour faster than I can. We seem like we're on the same line. I've been here 20 times. I got to learn this one section of the track. So, I mean, I've definitely been in a situation like, for some reason, VIR is in my mind, of course, but I realized I could keep piling it a little more speed in turn 3 where I didn't realize that. So for a whole weekend, I was kind of focused on turn 3 and realizing how much more ground I could make up there and realizing there's a little more speed there. So I remember I was kind of obsessed with my exit speed, checking my exit speed at the same reference point every time coming out of turn 3. And I built in a few more miles an hour than I had been able to run there before. So it can be a micro goal, or it could be a fairly big macro goal if you're sort of at the beginning of a phase.
Mm-hmm. So you literally could do something as simple as take more speed out of turn X, or find my braking marker for turn Y, things like that.
Yeah, sure. I would say that once you're at a fairly advanced and accomplished level of driving, then you're chasing the small details, and that's where your speed is going to come from. Especially I'm always there thinking like, what's going to happen to me in a race if I can't get faster? I see people obviously faster with similar equipment, so I should be able to do this, and I got to figure it out, because I don't want to get caught out in a race just being slow slow in some place for no reason just because I haven't figured it out.
Yeah. What about if you're relatively early on and you're like HPD 1, HPD 2, trying to get there? What would you think would be suitable goals? And is there too many? Are you trying to do too many things at once, or should you try to limit it?
I would say, like, if you're a DE1 student, for the most part, like, I just need to keep the car on the track and work with the flow of traffic. And hopefully, as you're doing that, you're accomplishing some goals that you may not have even set out for, in the front of your mind. But I mean, you're building skills all along as you go. And so sometimes you may be doubling back to some of those initial skills that you learned early on at HPDE1. in HPDE too. Like, I got pretty good in braking, but now I'm in HPDE too, and I see people going faster than me. It looks like they're doing more with the brakes. So it's sort of just like you're sort of climbing a ladder of little goals that, and the rungs get further and further apart.
Yeah. So you could work at different inputs or different ways of input. I know from one of the things that with the HPDs that we like to go to, the difference between 2 and 3 is in 2 they're thinking about doing heel toe, in 3 it's kind of required to move up.
Right.
So it could be a specific skill you work on.
Yeah, and when I'm thinking, when you started mentioning that, my mind went back to the last time I instructed with NASA, and they have those logbooks, the little passports.
The passport, yep.
They list a certain specific set of skills that you have to go from one to the other. I do remember that having heel toe down is part of moving up.
Yep. Or trail braking. You're not trail braking in 1, but you start in 2 maybe. Right.
Yeah. So yeah, the list of things that are essential for you is always going to be changing and evolving too. Like when you're at DE1, it's just essential that you put the good brake fluid in the car and keep it on the track. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it's always a sliding scale. Yep. Your goals for a stint. So you just, when you're trying to make a goal for a stint, it should be appropriate for your experience level. So if you're in DE1, you don't need to be going out there thinking about trying to make a wing change or doing something super racy, because you're not going to be going fast enough to fully maximize whatever change you're making. You're just kind of in the wind, doing that kind of stuff. So it's important to make sure it's a skill level and car appropriate goal. But yeah, so in my mind, perfectly, you're just at every level you have a different sort of sets of goals. I mean, like I would say, for example, the first time you get into an HPDE group where there's a passing where a point by isn't required, that's a whole new set of skills. And your first goal when you go out into that group might be, I'm just going to try to keep it on the track and sort of see how it goes out here. You may not have a bigger goal than just like when it's a new threshold you've passed. Your goal may just need to be go out, see how it is with this new group.
Don't be that guy.
Yeah, I'm sure the first time I got put out into HPDE 3, I was like, I'm just going to go out here and kind of roll with this group and see what happens. I wasn't thinking like, all right, I got to beat all these guys or what I mean. So it just you have to be perspicacious. You have to sort of be self-aware. So that helps a lot. If you can be realistic with yourself about here's where I am in my progression and here's what I should be doing out here this weekend, then you're gonna make good progress. But if you're somebody who I would say if you're somebody who's obsessed with spending tons of money on your car and making mods and you don't have a whole lot of skill in driving yet, it may be tough for you to make good goals. What do you think? I'm always biased against those folks who spend tons of money on their car without getting any better at driving it.
Yeah, I think the more important thing is to have a goal, because you don't just want to be lapping, right? I mean, you spent decent amount of money to get out there. You spent decent amount of time to get out there. You spent all this input. I always look at how can I get the most out of it. And if I don't have a goal and I'm just going around the track and I'm popping down 152s, okay, maybe I'm consistent. But did I get any better?
I'll tell you a quick story about that. I sort of hit what I thought was a phase where I was like, hey, I'm pretty good at this stuff. I think I'd started instructing and it sort of settled into that. And I had my Miata. I was running it on R-Comp tires and really good race brakes. And I thought it was pretty hot stuff and, maxing it out. But then I said, I wanted to start doing time trial with NASA because they would let instructors do it for free. So it was this is kind of pre-smartphones, or not everybody had one in their car yet and trying to use Harry's lap timer.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of folks didn't know what their times were. I never bothered with any kind of timing. I just sort of gauged myself against the flow of traffic. But putting the transponder on my car and doing time trials while I was still instructing, this is before I ever did any endurance racing. It was the first time I quantified how I was doing, and there were cars similar to mine, very similarly equipped, that were running a couple seconds to lap faster than mine. There was no reason I should not be up there. So when I started time trialing, I would go out there with every goal of like, I'm going to stick with these guys who are in similar equipment. I would just sort of try to find them on track, and my goal would be to just get out there and see what they were doing slightly better.
Right.
And it turned out in one case that helped me and another guy get faster, because it was me and I was in a Miata, didn't have a whole lot of power. He was in a Honda Civic, and so he did have a lot of power. So he would pull me down the straight, and I would get past him in the turn. So we would just kind of leapfrog past each other the whole lap, and we would sort of boost each other's time. So just by drafting and sort of sucking each other around the track. So That's just another example of sort of my goals. I was like, oh crap, I'm not as fast as I thought I was, and my goal is to get as fast as I should be with this car.
Right. But I think you'd agree it's better to have at least one goal for each stint,
Sure,
and not just go lap.
Oh, for sure. And I should also say this: I'm definitely guilty of just going and freewheeling at a DE, especially somebody lets me drive their car. But also there is a species of DE participant who doing DEs is their end goal, which is totally cool, and
Absolutely.
and lapping the way they like to drive the car, the way they're comfortable doing it, and not trying to improve or change is also part of their shtick, and that's totally cool to me too. But they exist, they're out there. So while we're like, hey, I'm focused, I'm out here for a reason, I'm trying to get something done. There are other people who are trying to get something done, and the thing they're trying to get done is just zzz, 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 zzz. So just a note for everybody out there. There is a subset of folks who just want to get out there and make laps, and they're totally cool doing that. So it takes all of us to bring enough people to a track for people to have events,
Sure. So your goal could be simply to just go have fun, if that's what you want. And then if you're trying to get better, you may want to have a more specific goal to make you get better faster.
What's the term for that? Open circuit driving or something? Open loop? I don't even know the term for it because I'm not usually doing that. But yeah, there's also folks out there doing that. But I think you're right. At least for me, I mean, I'm at the track to try to make race cars faster, so there's always a goal there.
Yep, I'm at the point trying to get me faster because the race car is faster than me, so I got to catch up. So we'll get there.
Yep.
All right, that'll do it for that one. Thank you, Ben.
All right, thank you.